Well, in terms of Western modernization took place over about 200 years from the start of the Industrial Revolution. And Western modernization was based on something that I call the 3 E's, 3 exploitations. It was based on exploitation of their own working poor. Second exploitation was the exploitation of other countries. And the third exploitation was the exploitation of the environment. Now, Chinese modernization obviously cannot and must not be based on that type of exploitation. So in terms of the poor, the working poor in China, China has something called people-centered development, the core of which is that the fruits of development should be shared by everybody. That development raises the common level for everyone across the board. Secondly, in terms of other countries, again, China's modernization clearly cannot be developed on the basis of the kind of colonization that the West engaged in. And China, in fact, adopts the opposite approach. As I mentioned earlier, it's an idea of win-win development, reflected primarily in the Belt and Road Initiative, which sees other developing countries as an opportunity, which sees their development as something that will feed back to China. So that's how China relates with the rest of the world, and President Xi calls it a global community of shared future. In terms of the environment, I think China made many of the mistakes that the West did in the first period of industrialization after the creation of the PRC in 1949. But it took China about 20 years to understand what it took the West 200 years to understand. And since the turn of the century, with the scientific outlook on development, that was a fundamental change in the model for economic growth, where growth would be based not purely on economic factors, it would also take into account social and environmental factors as well. So I think that's the fundamental difference between Western modernization and Chinese modernization, where the West exploited, China tries to work in partnership with its own people, with other countries, and with the environment.